Hello and welcome to our seasonal container display live Zoom. Autumn is all of a sudden here. The leaves are starting to turn a lovely shade of orange and red. The birds are starting to migrate. The nights are getting darker and the temperatures are getting colder. But we are just as busy as ever in our gardens. It's now time to plant our bulbs, clear out our sheds and make some seed bombs and just give our gardens a general tidy up. My name is Lorna Baker and I am the Trellis Office Manager. And with me today are my colleagues Joan Wilson, the Trellis Project Advisor, and Jenny Simpson, our Trellis Information and Fieldwork Coordinator, is having some technical difficulties, but hopefully she'll be joining us soon. For those of you who don't know us, Trellis is the charity that supports people working in care, health, education and community settings to garden with their clients, especially those with no gardening knowledge or who are brushing up on long forgotten skills. You can find out more about the support we offer to the sector and find links to all our training and resources online on our Trellis homepage. As ever, the aim of these online sessions is to inspire you to have a go at gardening activities with your clients. We'll be sharing lots of ideas to stimulate interest and interaction, and we'd love to hear about activities and techniques you've tried or questions about how you do any of these. We ask that you use the chat function throughout the session to type in your questions or comments that you'd like to make, and a member of our staff will voice them at the end. During the Q&A session at the end, you can also use the raise hand button and we'll invite you to unmute and speak. We've enabled live transcript today, so you can access this by selecting more and then live transcript, and that will bring up subtitles. So today's session is around 60 minutes long. We will have a short presentation followed by practical demonstrations and a Q&A discussion at the end. I'm going to hand over to Joan, who will share Jenny's presentation, and hopefully Jenny will be able to join us. Over to you, Joan.
Great, thank you, Lorna. I'm just actually sending Jenny the link via another way to see if she can get in that way. So let me come back to you. I hope that Jenny will get that. Okay, hello, good morning, everybody. Right, let me see if I can find Jenny's presentation, and I think this is it. Lorna, can you see this okay?
That's great, we can see it.
So welcome everybody, and as we said, Jenny will be with us shortly, hopefully, but in the meantime I'm going to start her presentation for her, just to set the scene for the wee practical demo that I'm going to do in a wee while. So autumn, it has arrived, and the session is all about bringing the outdoors in and engaging with nature. Right. So autumn is all about, for anybody that can remember their science at school, we've got the 4 seasons, and we have the seasons on the long. It's popping up on my screen all over the place. A change in season from long daylight hours of summer to the shorter daylight hours. This is all to do with the tilt of the Earth as it revolves around the sun, meaning less light reaching us in the northern hemisphere. Now, we're not so bad down here because we'll get at least 8 to 10 hours daylight in the shortest days. Big for me around those further north that only get 4 or 5 hours, so you're quite lucky. So UK, our autumn equinox, where the equal length of day matches the length of night and dark time hours, is on the 23rd of September. And as we get closer to the shortest day, which is the 21st of December, the daylight gets shorter and shorter. And then, of course, as soon as we get over that shortest day, the 21st, everybody starts saying, oh, the days are fair stretching out. And you're like, that really? By about 2 minutes each day, something like that. But by about January, middle of January, I always think you can actually start to see that change, and you are getting to 5 o'clock before it starts. So that's us getting towards springtime. Autumn, we start to see drop in temperatures and the weather patterns change. Yesterday was pretty miserable in the morning here. I'm the west coast of Scotland, chucking it down in the morning, torrential rain in fact. And then today I'm looking out the window here, blue skies, white fluffy clouds everywhere, and it's a wee bit cool, but it's actually really quite a pleasant day. In regards to the garden, what's happening there, things are really slowing down. The plant growth kind of slows up. Plants never stop growing entirely. We might see them above ground starting to drop the leaves and dying back, but below the ground, the roots are still busy doing something. They're hunkering down for the winter, but they've got energy stored up in them, and they're just sitting quietly. The roots might actually be doing something depending on the type of plant, but they're all doing something, just waiting for a particular cue from Mother Nature that will spark them back into active life during late winter, early springtime. So, what's the next slide? I want that. There we go. Oh, yeah. Interested in the solar system. This is fascinating. This is an orrery. And if any of you don't know what an orrery is, it's a mechanical model of the solar system. And Jenny's got this link here to a fascinating short video of Peter Grimwood, who restores these traditional orreries, and they're beautiful. If anybody is near the west of Scotland and you know where Dumfries House is near Cumnock, they have an orrery in there, and it's amazing. You should pay your money to go for a fantastic tour of the house, and you get to see the orrery, and I've had a wee play with it, so definitely worthwhile. Now, perhaps in your care setting, you will have some ladies and gentlemen who have been engineers in their past working lives, and this could be a subject that would be of huge interest to them, and who knows, they might even have some hands-on experience of an orrery, and they could share the information with yourselves. So we mentioned about the signs of autumn, still days and white skies, definitely today here. And Jenny was telling me the other day that she has signed up. She's into stargazing and whatnot. And I wish she was here. And if she does join us, I'm definitely going to get her to talk a wee bit more about this. She basically watches the sky, and she was telling me about the what's it called, that 10 by 50 rear binoculars, that sort of like zoom in length. I can't talk about it because I don't know enough about it, but she is into watching the skies, the borealis, aurora, so lots of information there that hopefully Jenny will share with us later on. And of course, try out your weather lore. Depending on if you're a farmer or a fisher, it's red sky in the morning. Red sky in the morning is a shepherd's or a sailor's warning. Red sky at night is a shepherd or a sailor's delight. And I can't tell you what it was last night. It must have been a red sky last night. It was such a beautiful day today. And the Met Office have an archive of weather lore. Another interesting link that you'd perhaps be interested in having a look at with some of your residents. Okay, so this was one of Jenny's photographs again. Oh no, this one isn't a Jenny photograph, but she does have some private photographs of the sky. And she is a member of a club that goes stargazing at night time. So again, I'm not going to talk about this because that is Jenny's detail.
Hello,
So,
can I jump in there?
Yes, of course. Sorry, Jenny, are you here? Hello.
Hello, I've managed to sneak in with my phone. Sorry about that. My computer's just completely died on me. So I'm linking in with my phone so I can see the slides, and if you'd like me to chat on, I can do that.
Right, yeah, batter on. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Here's Jenny.
Thanks very much. I don't know how the controls work on my phone, so I'm just going to talk and rely on you and Lorna to do the technicalities.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, thanks very much. So I'm sorry about that. I'm just joining you now, but the stargazing is great. All I can say is have a go. This is the perfect time of the year to try, because the nights are drawing in, and we get lots of dark in the early evening, and there's lots to see up in the sky. There's a great website called Go Stargazing, which is a superb place to start. It has lists of local astronomy clubs, and it has lists of their events as well, and it also has good information on how to start stargazing, you know, and what kind of equipment to buy. And basically it's start with a pair of binoculars, which is great advice, I think. So I would advise you to have a go, and perhaps organise a garden party with some nice hot chocolate, and get all your reclining chairs out there, get everybody wrapped up in their winter coats, and get them out and having a look up at the sky on a fine night. It's lovely, and it's amazing what you can see with the naked eye as well as a pair of binoculars. So I would say that have a go at that. And local astronomical societies are full of really enthusiastic amateurs, and quite a lot of them will probably come out and run a stargazing event with you. Just get in touch with them. So that's all I've got to say about stargazing. What's the next slide?
There you go.
Oh, lovely. So thinking about looking around us for signs of autumn, there's plants are showing lots of signs of autumn at the moment. They're showing us their lovely fruit. You can see a wild raspberry here, but there's all sorts of things out there. Brambles and hips and haws, lovely rose hips, which you can pick and make into rosehip syrup, and hawthorn. So lots of things to actually attract the birds just now. And what else is happening? Well, the leaves are beginning to change colour. We've noticed that in the last week. I think they're really tinging now into their lovely autumn shades. Oranges and brown, oranges and yellows coming out in the leaves, and they're beginning to fall. So October, the time of fruit for apples. So it's National Apple Day on the 21st of October. So look around for lots of apple-related events in your locality. There's usually lots of picking and juicing events going on at orchards and community gardens, National Trust properties if you've got any near you, and local food growing groups. So lots of apple-inspired cooking you can do as well. I'm sure you can think of many, many things with apples in. Just apple crumble to be one of my favourites, I have to say, at this time of the year. That's a great warmer and absolutely delicious. So lots to do with apples. You could stimulate lots of interest in that.
Oh, are you still with us, Jenny? Has she been pulling out the meeting, Lorna?
I think she's frozen.
Okay, right. Well, I'll just keep going. So,
She's back, I think. Jenny, are you there? No, sorry, Joan.
okay, no, it's okay. So, many of us will be familiar with the other signs of autumn. Conkers is an old-fashioned game that is great. I remember playing it, and I don't think I'm that old, but anyway, I do remember playing it, and I was rubbish at it. But gathering conkers, and again, depending on your client group, the ones that you're caring for, this could be something that they're very knowledgeable about. So gather some conkers and get some string tied round about them, and have yourself a conkers challenge. And of course, you can get your sweet chestnuts that you can roast and eat, which I have to admit, I've never actually done myself. So I might actually have a wee go at that. Another sign of autumn is all the toadstools and mushrooms that are growing freely. I can't believe how many I've spotted just in the last fortnight popping up all over the place. So they're a wee bit like an iceberg. We see what we see on top. And just a wee point of note here, just don't go picking mushrooms willy-nilly and frying them for your breakfast or anything like that. An awful lot of them are poisonous. So if you don't know your mushrooms, just leave the wild mushrooms to themselves and just continue cooking with the shop bought ones, unless you are very confident you know your mushrooms. So a wee bit like an iceberg, there's much more underground. Many trees are interconnected by strands of fungi, like sort of like a layer of thread running through the soil. And this is how the trees actually communicate with each other, and they regulate carbon and nutrients. And there's a lot more research going into this at the moment. And Jenny has shared a link here with us the National Forest Foundation. So this could actually be of interest, a wee point of conversation and a wee activity to do on the laptop one day. Squirrels, red squirrels, if you're lucky enough to live a wee bit further north. I've got no red squirrels down here. We've got lots of grey squirrels, but they're more obvious at the moment as they're scampering about, collecting all the fallen nuts on the ground and storing them for their winter snacks. You can get squirrel feeders if you're interested in making sure that they do have plenty of food. And again, citizen science, there's a link here to the Citizen Science website. You can report red and grey squirrels. They want to do a bit of a monitoring and data collection. So that could be a wee activity, set up one afternoon or morning and just sit down and check out how many you might spot in your own garden or local area. And this is lovely. Just a single stem. I mentioned earlier on about most plants are dying down at this time of year, but there are some plants out there that actually flower at this time of the year. So don't just write the garden off, bring the outside in, and even just Jenny's written here, appreciate the elegance of a single stem. And it's so true. A single stem in a jam jar is every bit as beautiful than a whole collection of summer flowery ones. And here is an orchid, which is we grow as a house plant. We're not lucky enough to grow them outdoors. But a single stem is beautiful. Ikebana is the Japanese art of flowering arrangement. Now, this is all quite new to me. Jenny was telling me about this also. And basically, it's a single stem in a jar. You can see that this is not difficult to achieve at all. And this particular plant we're looking at is just ivy, plain ivy. How stunning is that? So everybody can have a shot at flower arranging because Ikebana is definitely one that we can all do. And all these plants, this is a dahlia, which will still be flowering in many gardens at the moment. All these plants and animals are lovely subjects for photography or drawing sessions indoors and out. We made a drawing session a couple of weeks ago. We've recorded the session and it's available on YouTube. If you never managed to join in, go and have a wee look at it because we received fabulous feedback from it from the folks that did attend it, and lots of lovely, easy drawing tips in there. So, taking photographs and drawing sessions encourages observation skills, conversation pieces, socialising, mindfulness, and of course enjoyment. And these are all critical. These are all interconnected, making our work as support workers and care workers, it just supports us in our role. Connecting with the outdoors, encourage looking out. This wee picture here shows a room that's kind of set up. The blinds are kind of closed over a wee bit, and everybody's encouraged to look inward, which is good for conversation, yes. But if we open the window, open the curtains, open the blinds, and have a table with the chairs looking out the window, there's a much more greater chance of folk connecting with the outdoors, seeing what flowers are still available, seeing those changes, leaf colour, and spotting those squirrels. So basically, Jenny summed it up by saying, get an eyeful of colourful autumn and winter. So get looking outside, and if it's a day like today, wrap up warm and get a wee walk and go outside. So I'm going to stop sharing Jenny's presentation, which I will apologise for not doing half a good job as what she would have done. I'm going to jump over now, Lorna, to my demo table. Okay. So can you hear me okay, Lorna, over here?
Yep, we can hear you. Great.
All right, fabulous. Okie dokie. I'm going to take my jacket off because I'm now over at the window and it is roasting over here. Okay, so as I was saying in Jenny's presentation there, autumn has truly arrived with much cooler days and the darker evenings, which you must start doing some stargazing with. And we've got lots of new colours in the garden, those shades and tones of crimsons, yellows and oranges, all to be enjoyed. And the leaves are falling off the trees and the shrubs, which is great as well because it enables a different view of our surroundings, because we can now look through those trees and look beyond the trees to see what's over into your neighbours' gardens now. And also by looking at the smaller shrubs, you can look at the intricacies of their branch and stem structure, because some of them have got really unusual structure, which is actually more interesting than their boring leaves sometimes. So get out and have a wee look. But alas, although I'm trying to G us up for autumn, we know that our jolly bright summer planters are now looking a wee bit tired and sad. So it's time to ring the changes, so out with the old and plant up the new. This basket here is my newly planted autumn one. Some of you might recall me planting up my summer one about May time. So I've now emptied it and I've now planted up a new one, and I've got a fern in the middle here, and I have got some wee bright coloured violas, a wee yellow one here, a wee orangey one over here, and I have got some winter flowering heathers, but I'll talk more about the heathers and the violas later on. So plan a visit to a garden centre to pick up a colourful selection of plants, and organise your own tabletop activity to rejuvenate not only your tired summer containers, but it's a great way to engage clients in light exercise that can support stress reduction, maintain motor and cognitive skills, and of course it sparks creativity. Enable others that don't get that chance to do it themselves, enable them to get involved in some creativity themselves, and the chance for some relaxed conversation around the table. Plan your session in advance. Planning is so important. It means that everybody gets something out of it, and if you're well organised, it means that when you're actually delivering the session, you're in the moment, you're actually not fretting about, oh my goodness, I must remember to go and get this. Have everything to hand, and perhaps more able residents or more able cared for will be able to help in the setup. And of course, this instills value and worth for them, and self-esteem, and increase enjoyment from being part of the entire activity. And this session works really well with a group, as I've said, but don't forget those that can't join in group sessions for whatever reason. Setting this up as a one-to-one can lead to a wealth of outcomes as well. So I'll just move this out the way. And I'll just get my next container sorted out. So autumn. Autumn is the time for planting spring flowering bulbs like crocus and daffodils. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with crocus. This is a wee, oops, upside down. This is a wee purple one with a wee orange centre. You quite often see them growing in people's lawns and whatnot. My local church has got a fabulous display of crocus on their grassy area come the springtime. And of course, daffodils. I'm sure everybody will be well familiar with daffodils. Many councils have swathes of them approaching roundabouts and things like that on their entrance into their towns. So bulbs, snowdrops, crocus, tulips, daffodils are all examples of bulbs. And I've got a wee one here. This is a small daffodil bulb. And a bulb is an underground storehouse that contains everything that is needed to produce roots, leaves, stems and flowers. Mother Nature provides absolutely everything else. The rainy autumn weather gets the bulb to start to develop roots. Then a cold spell, 10 degrees or colder for around about 10 weeks, sparks the bulb into producing stems. And then the brighter arrival of spring promotes the development of flowers on top of the stems. And then when the stems and leaves die back in early summer, the warmth of mid to late summer bakes new bulblets at the side of the mummy bulb. And this is one here. This is the mother bulb in the middle. And over this past summer, she's been making two wee bulblets, two wee baby bulbs at the side of her, if you can see that okay. So I've now got 3 stems already starting to, it's keen, it knows it's autumn and it's wanting to do something. So I'll definitely get 1 stem with flowers on it. These 2 are probably too immature to develop flowers this springtime, but definitely next year, this wee bulb will give me 3 flowers. So the first thing I'm going to be demoing is making a bulb lasagna. But one more thing that I want to say, and you'll be thinking, gosh, will she stop talking and actually get on with it? But the thing that I really want to get across just now is, as activity coordinators and support workers, our role is to enable folks to engage in meaningful activity. So that means doing things with them and not for them. And by me sharing bits and pieces about bulbs in autumn, you can use that, get the conversation, and setting the scene is really important as it brings the activity into context, discussing different aspects of it, such as planting spring flower bulbs in the autumn helps understand the passage of time and seasons, and explaining how it's all going to happen. And although we normally associate bulbs such as daffodil growing in the ground, as I said, in the swathes and the grass and whatnot, bringing this activity to a tabletop and planting up pots and baskets indoors makes it accessible for all, bringing that garden experience indoors. And of course, chatting about bulbs such as favourites supports reminiscence work. My own favourite bulb, maybe folks can type into the chat what their favourite bulb is and why it's their favourite bulb, but my favourite bulb is the snowdrop. Maybe because it's the very first of the so-called spring flowering bulbs, flowering in January. It's not quite spring, but we'll call it, it is known as a spring flowering bulb. And maybe I like them because they tell me that basically we've broken the back of winter and spring is on its way. So back to making a bulb lasagna. So what is it? A bulb lasagna is a pot like this one here. This was my summer, a container that I used in summertime, full of summer flowering geraniums. I've emptied everything out, it's all gone into the compost heap. I've given it a good wash out just to get rid of any potential build-up of disease that was maybe lurking about in there from the compost, and got rid of any wee bugs that were floating about in here. So I've got a nice clean container again. And so what I'm going to do is this bulb lasagna is going to be made into this pot, and the bulb lasagna is a container holding layers of bulbs and compost, with each type of bulb planted flowering at different times throughout the spring months. Each wee bulb planted will make its way through the lasagna layers to emerge from the compost and flower. And depending on which bulbs you choose to grow, you might have flowers from January all the way through to May. So the bulbs that I'm using today are a wee iris. This is the iris bulb here. The iris will grow to around about 12 centimetres and it will flower in March. Next one to flower will be my daffodil. This is a little daffodil called Sundisk, and that was the wee daffodil that I was holding up earlier on. And the third bulb I'm going to use is the tulip, Little Red Riding Hood, which grows about 25 centimetres tall, and it will flower in May time. That's the tulip bulb there. So let's get going. I've got some compost here. Now this is just general purpose compost. You can buy bulb fibre out of the garden centres, bags of bulb fibre. They have got additional drainage material mixed through the general purpose compost. Bulbs don't like to sit in wet compost. They do like rain. We need rain for them to start growing their stems, but they don't like to sit wet compost, or else the bulb could actually rot and then it won't do anything. So I'm just breaking up the clumps of compost, the clumpy bits in the compost. This could be an activity that somebody could do the day before or the morning of the activity, just to get that all set up. It's a nice tactile activity. Now I'm not wearing gloves. Dreadful, I know, please encourage your clients to wear gloves, especially when handling bulbs, because some bulbs can be can be an irritant to some types of skins. So always wear gloves when you're handling the bulbs. Do as I say and not as I do, please. So I'm going to just scoop my compost in here. I'm using my hand because I'm comfortable doing that. But think about using a mug. Your client might prefer that, or a smaller scoop. That's good. And really, if that's even still too much, there is nothing wrong with scooping away with a spoon until you get to the level of compost you require. Now, I've only filled this pot up about halfway to the top, because when we're planting bulbs, as a general rule, you plant them 3 times the depth of their original height. So that's 1, 2, 3. So the tulips are my biggest daffodil, so they're going to go down at the very bottom. So I'm just going to spread them about. I can move that over. You should see where I'm popping these in. I've got a flatter side and a pointy side. The pointy side goes up. If for some reason your client get them muddled up, they put them in the wrong way round, don't worry too much about it. The bulbs are really clever wee things. They sort themselves out. They've got contractile roots, which means that they kind of pull themselves into the right position. But by putting them in the right position to begin with, saves them using a lot of energy and getting themselves into the right position, and they keep that energy for putting on their stems and producing those flowers that we really want to see. So that's me got my tulip layer in of my lasagna. We'll call this the pasta or the cheese sauce going in at the minute. Just cover them over. My next layer, reducing in size of bulb, is the wee daffodil. So again, 3 times 1, 2, 3. I'll just squash them in on top of the compost here. Now you'll see that I can't see my tulip bulbs anymore. I have no idea where they are below this, but that doesn't matter, because when they start to grow, they soon work their way. Bulbs are just so clever. They work their way out. They wiggle round and get to the top, so they do. So that's my daffodils. Another layer over. And last but not least is my little iris. Now they're really quite tiny. 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to slide them down into this compost layer. Flatter side, you can start seeing tiny wee hairs. That's the root side, and the wee pointy side is the up side. We'll just push them round. So we've got a wee display of them going to pop up. As I say, they'll be the first ones to appear in March time. Going to layer that over. Now I could fill this layer up with more compost till about 2 centimetres clear of the rim of the container, and I could cover it with something like artificial decorative stone, and that would be a nice display just sitting on their own, nice and tidy and clean. And next spring you would start to see the green shoots popping up, which would work as well. But I am going to decorate the top of this pot with some winter flowering violas. Again, readily available in the garden centres. Get them in all sorts of colours. I'm just going to squeeze the bottom of the root ball. Pop it out. Nice wee root system developing here. And again, I'm just going to make a small hole. But I know there's bulbs in here, so I'm going to be careful and just kind of wiggle them down a wee bit. I'll put 3 in here, I think. So I've got a wee yellow one here. That's nice and bright. And a wee tricolour one. How cheery is that? Wee purple and yellow. Wiggle a wee hole. And then I'll take the compost and I'll just kind of fill in and around. Thumb, first finger, kind of like pushing them round about the neck of the plant just to firm it into the compost. And we've got something that looks good immediately. And then, of course, we've got the anticipation and the delight of waiting on the first stems up here. So there we have our bulb lasagna. Not visible to the eye just now, but we know it's all going to happen. So that's that one. I have got a little basket here that again I used in the summertime that had summer flowers in it. And I'm going to plant it up with a couple of winter interest shrubs. Now these two particular plants here are called euonymus. They do great as winter container plants because they're evergreen, which means they keep their leaves on all year round. And this one is a kind of like white and creamy one. This one, white, green, creamy white and green one. This one is mainly green with a wee sort of like hint of yellow round about the edges. This is a Christmas rose, this is known as. It keeps its lovely sturdy green leaves all year round, and you can see the wee flowers starting to just develop just now. They'll flower all winter. But what I'm actually going to put into my container is a wee, so into my basket I should say, is a wee selection of winter interest heathers. So heathers like to grow in ericaceous compost. This isn't ericaceous. Ericaceous is acid-loving compost. This isn't ericaceous compost, but because I know this is going to be a temporary container, I'm just going to use my general purpose compost, get the enjoyment out of the winter heathers over the winter time, and next spring I'm going to plant these heathers into my rockery that is full of ericaceous compost, and that's when they'll start their growing in earnest next spring, and they'll have the right nutrients for them there. So this is a tall upright heather. It's called Erica arborea Estrella Gold, if anybody's interested. I can write this into the chat later on. Now you'll see that I didn't fill the basket up very high. I put it to the level that I think that my root ball of this heather can sit and leave a bit of space at the top, because I don't want the plant compost sitting level with the container. My next one I'm going to use is another heather called Erica, I don't remember this one, Kramer's Red. Squeezing the bottom, its roots have actually started to grow out the bottom of the container, so I'm just going to pull these off. It's not going to do the plant any harm whatsoever. Push them off. Lovely root system, and this has got lovely dark green, forest green foliage with nice pink flowers already appearing, like so. Wiggle that around like that. And the third one I want to use is another Erica. Now, heathers, you get mainly two types of heathers. One is your Calluna, C-A-L-L-U-N-A, which is your summer and autumn flowering heather. Those will be the ones that in the garden will be looking really quite nice just now. Try not and buy them because they're not going to flower any longer once the end of October comes. Look for the Ericas, E-R-I-K-A, as in the girl's name. They are your winter and spring flowering heathers. So this one's already started to flower. This one's just budding up. This has got your lovely kind of limey green foliage, which is a lovely contrast to what we've got going on here. And it has a lovely wee white flower. You can see the bud starting to develop just now with a wee sort of central red eye. So look for Ericas, and you will get the benefit of flowers all winter into springtime. Now this is already looking quite jolly, I think. Now you could actually pop in some wee daffodil bulbs in here if you wanted, and then you've got that wee added surprise next spring when they appear. Or we can just take another wee viola, squeeze, get gravity to help you wiggle that one out. And I'm just going to pop this in this wee gap here. And drop some compost into the voids that are left. There we go. Firm everything in well. Again, making sure that the compost level is about a good centimetre, 2 centimetres just below the rim of the basket or the container. And there we have a wee autumn winter interest hanging basket. Now, perhaps you don't actually have the means to go out and buy bulbs or violas or some winter interest plants. So what I'm going to do is show you something else that I do. I'll just get some more compost up here. Again, just general purpose compost. But if you've got containers out in the garden, you don't necessarily have to take all the compost out of them. Take out all the dead and dying summer interest plants, like your geraniums and your lobelias and your alyssum, all these lovely plants that really aren't going to do anything else for the rest of the year now. They're just going to turn brown and look very sad. So take out all the spent plants, but you can leave the compost in. So I'm just going to mimic a container that's all the old plants taken out of it, and we're left with some compost. So one way of making these planters look a wee bit more jolly is just to go out into the garden, or maybe your neighbour's garden with their permission. I'm sure one of your colleagues will have a lovely big garden, and cut up, collect some evergreen foliage. Now, when I talk about evergreen foliage, I mean things like of conifer. This is just a branch out of one of my conifer shrubs. This is a plant called patio. It's got lovely dark stems, and these leaves are kind of crinkly. It's a lovely activity to do, even just to handle the foliage. The more able clients can maybe go outside and help like bring it in, or you can nip out, bring the foliage in yourself, lay it out on the table and just pass them round about, and just, you can, again, Zoom, I keep on talking about Zoom, they're going to have to sort out the sound and visual is very good in Zoom, but smelling is not very good. Scent's not a possibility. But look at the contrast in foliage colours and types, sounds, touch. This wee one here was talking about plants that have got flowers in the wintertime. This plant is called viburnum. It keeps its leaf all year round, and this is it starting to make wee buds that will turn into flowers over the next, oh gosh, it's always flowering by Christmas time anyway. So this one actually makes wee white flowers, but other viburnums make kind of reddy white flowers as well. So lots of interest. And of course, what else do we have here? Eucalyptus, lovely pink stems, that sort of silvery green, and this is very scented. This is a lovely tactile plant to bring indoors. And last but not least, I have got some ivy here with some berries on it. Now, be careful, depending on your client group, maybe bringing the berries indoors isn't such a good idea. Just be aware of that. Some folks might think that they're for eating, which isn't a good thing at all. We don't want to encourage that. Berries should only be eaten if they are on your plate, unless you're very confident you know what you're eating. So I brought them in just for a wee bit of interest. So what I'm going to do is just do a wee bit of floral arranging. I've already taken the side branches off of this stem here, and just going to plonk that in at the back like so. Pittosporum, I'm just going to put in at the side like so. You can see I don't have a plan here. Eucalyptus, yeah. Again, just to save some time, I've already cleaned these stems off the bottom. This could be a job that somebody else could do within the group, or if your client's a wee bit more anxious and you want to just give them the opportunity to just be free range and stick a range plants and stems in, then you clear the stems off and just let them get on with it a wee bit like what I'm doing here. Now I'm planting in clumps because I think we get more effect if we do clumps. I'm just going to pull these off. Want more clumpy bits here. What else have I got over here that I want to show you? Yeah, I brought in some of these. This is Virginia elephant ears. They're a lovely evergreen plant. They're kind of leathery and they're just big and bold. 2 stems of them. Lovely contrast, lovely thing to handle, share round about, and wonder why it's called elephant ears. I'm going to put that like so, and got, this is choicea, another contrasting piece of foliage, and then I'm going to pop in this viburnum. I'm going to make it a wee bit shorter, so I want it at the front here. Break off some more of these side stems, pop it in like so, so you can see that wee flower there, taking shape. And last but not least, let's pop in some ivy with the wee berries on show. And this is all just using foliage from my garden, from shrubs. Now, you wouldn't even know that I cut anything off of them because they're so big and these plants can afford to have a wee bit of pruning. All for free, and I've jollied up my container, and this will look good. You don't need to water it. The atmosphere, there's enough moisture in the atmosphere that will keep this plant looking, this display looking fresh. This will definitely last up until Christmas into January. It's starting to look a wee bit ropey then. I'll redo the activity and freshen up my container. So ladies and gentlemen, Lorna, that's me. I'm finished with my demo. I'm going to switch off here and I'll join you back on the laptop. Thanks very much.
Great, thank you very much, Joan. So we've got some time for questions. We do have a couple of questions in the chat, so once Joan's back at her desk, we can ask her them. Does anybody have any other questions that they want to put in the chat, or raise your hand if you want to voice your questions? Okay, I'll just go to the questions in the chat. Joan, are you ready to answer some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay, so Marie is asking, what's the size of the container that was in the bulb lasagna demonstration?
Okay, that one was, I'll tell you exactly, because if I make it up, you'll not believe me. So I have got said container. This is the exact same one for the bulb lasagna ruler.
Okay.
So that one is 18 centimeters tall by diameter 20 centimeters. So 20 centimeters by 20 by 20 basically. Okay, it's also known as a 5-litre pot. So maybe if you were in the garden centre, you're wanting to buy something like this, a 5-litre pot is the one that I use for both the bulb lasagna and the outdoor floral arrangement. Great.
Marie's also asking, can we still plant these kind of bulbs in November?
Yes. You know, any time through autumn is ideal. The earlier you do it, the better, because they've got a longer time to get themselves established and get themselves into position. But do not plant them. I've planted bulbs in December and January, so I don't get a very good display that spring, but at least that's then planted in the ground or in the container, and I always get a fabulous show the following year. Bulbs don't keep very well out of the ground or out of compost because they either dry out or they get damp, and they're exposed to a light that they don't particularly like. They like being in the dark. So yeah, plant them in November if you can't do them beforehand.
Great. A question kind of relating to that. Margaret has said that she thought it was best to wait until November for planting tulips to avoid tulip disease.
Yes, that is true. Folks do prefer to plant later in the year for them. But I'm of the ilk that if I've got them and that's the activity that I want to be doing, then I'd rather do it just now and have them in the container and in the ground. But Margaret, no, you're quite right. They are susceptible to disease, but let's not worry about these things and let's just get on with it and get them in the ground.
Great, thank you very much. Alice has asked, are the heathers pollinator friendly? Oh, sorry, wait, I think Jenny might have already answered this one. Jenny says single flowering heathers are good for pollinators. For a list of garden plants for pollinators, see RHS, and Jenny has also included the link to the RHS website. Let's see if we've got any.
Yeah, planting bulbs are good for the pollinators as well. Snowdrops and crocus are great pollinators. So yeah, all these wee bugs, we always think about them in the summertime. The bugs and the bees are doing all their stuff, but we need pollinators in the winter time and they need us in the winter time as well. So yep, those heathers, that link that Jenny shared, definitely going to have a wee look at that.
And Frank has asked, the Erica heathers that you suggested, how many seasons do you get out of these heathers?
Oh, well, okay. A long, many years, many seasons. I've planted them in that little basket there. Now they're in the general purpose compost, which I said isn't their ideal growing condition. But for the next few months, it's more like a holding container, I'm going to call that. And then I'm going to plant them outdoors into my rockery. And I fully expect them to last for many years. The trick with heathers is to prune them regularly, and you prune heathers after the finished flowering. Okay, so that container, wherever it is now, that little basket, once I deconstruct it next spring, I will trim up all the flowering stems to kind of contain the size a little bit as well. Plant it out into the rockery that's got ericaceous compost, acid loving compost in it, acid plant loving compost in it, and it'll be green all summer, and then it'll put on buds and flower next winter, and then I'll prune it again next spring and repeat that cycle. It'll get a wee bit bigger every year, but I'll be containing its shape. And I've got heathers out there that will be, parts of my garden are about 10 years old now, and I've got heathers in there that will be 10 years anyway. But yeah, many years, Frank.
Great, thank you. And Jenny, you've asked a question in the chat. Would you like to voice your question? So Jenny's asking, deadheading flowering plants in winter, should we, how to best do it?
Okay, yeah, deadhead your flowers, Jenny. I'm just going to grab back over here. This is where I dropped something in the laptop. Yes, in the summertime, we're encouraged to deadhead our summer flowering annual plants by just, either scissors and nipping off their little heads on the stem, or they're so delicate, you can use your thumb and finger just to nip it. You want to, once the plant has finished flowering, it believes it's done its business, it's just going to set seed and it's going to die, because that's its aim in life, is to make flowers, set seed, so that the life cycle continues. But if we trick it into believing it hasn't really died by taking off the dying flowers before they're allowed to set seed, it goes, oh gosh, it must make more flowers because I've not made any seeds yet. So it continues to make seed, makes more flowers. So I would just nip them off. This one's damaged, so I'm just going to nip it off like so. Put it to the side, put that in the compost heap. But also, by sort of deadheading, you're containing the shape of the violas. In the wintertime violas and in the summertime, they can get quite sprawly and they can be a wee bit sort of like messy looking. How about that? So especially in a container, if you're deadheading them, Jenny, you're encouraging it to make new flowers the whole time, and you're also containing the shape of it, which will keep your wee basket looking really pretty.
Great, thank you very much, Joan, and Frank and me are both saying thank you very much for your very clear answers.
Good, thank you.
So that is all we have time for today. Thank you all very much for your contribution to today's live Zoom, and a very big thank you to Joan and Jenny. Our apologies for the technical difficulties that we experienced at the beginning. But we look forward to seeing you at our next session on the 27th of October at 10:30. And that session is Jingle Bulbs and Indoor Flowering Bulbs. Meanwhile, you can watch all the recordings of our live Zooms on our YouTube channel, and our new gardening activities book, which is 52 activities and it's one for every week of the year, is now available to pre-order from the Trellis shop, and you can access that on our website. Jenny has posted a link in the chat to the survey. If you complete the survey, you'll get a free giveaway. Thank you very much, everybody, and that's bye from all of us.